Furious European leaders are now declaring the United States under the Trump regime to officially be an enemy, to officially be an adversary, to be a, quote, systemic adversary. That's the language being used by a French general, Nicolas Richoux. He says the USA are now a systemic adversary and similar measures banning entry into European areas are essential against the United States. This as the United States State Department has sanctioned European leaders, banning them from entering the United States. Europe is also saying that if the United States dares to invade Greenland, as the United States is threatening to do, Europe is prepared to go to war against the United States and Donald Trump. This is what it has come to. Europe, our former top allies, are now having to speak firmly that they are ready for war against the Trump regime and that they are prepared for reciprocal sanctions against Donald Trump and the United States. And by the way, this comes as the United States has been meeting with top Russian officials in Miami to again try to figure out how to force a surrender upon Ukraine. So while the U.S. is meeting with Russia in Miami to plot conquest of Ukraine and conquest of Greenland, you have Europe saying enough is enough of this crap. Europe and world leaders are absolutely furious. You have one of the deputy prime ministers and the foreign minister of Poland expressing how Poland supports the territorial integrity of the allied kingdom of Denmark. And in spite of political division, we need to stand and defend international law and the principles of the inviolability of borders. This sentiment was echoed by French President Emmanuel Macron, who also stated in Nuuk, which is the capital of Greenland, I reaffirmed France's unwavering support for the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Denmark and Greenland. Greenland belongs to its people. Denmark stands as its guarantor. I join my voice to that of Europeans in expressing our full solidarity. This is Europe warning Donald Trump that it will go to war against the United States if the Trump regime dare invades Greenland. Like, do we understand what's taking place before our eyes? You have Ursula von der Leyen, the president of the European Union Commission, says the following: Arctic security remains a key priority to the European Union and one in which we seek to work with allies and partners. Territorial integrity and sovereignty are fundamental principles of international law. These principles are essential not only for the European Union, but for nations around the world. We stand in full solidarity with Denmark and the people of Greenland. This is after, again, Donald Trump is threatening to invade Greenland. And you have Europe, the European Union, saying, don't you dare do that. We've got the back of Greenland and Denmark. We will go to war with you if you do that. Like, do y'all see the stakes that are being raised here? And I want to talk about an important point that's not getting enough attention, which is why specifically the timing of Trump saying this about Greenland and Denmark. Why is this resurfacing again? Yes, it is a distraction from the Epstein files and Trump's cover-up, but there's something else I want to talk about in a moment as well that no one's covering. Just a reminder, hit subscribe. We're on our way to 6 million subscribers. As you know, the Trump regime is attacking the MeidasTouch network right now. Their DOJ was attacking our fearless reporting on Trump's cover-up of the Epstein files. So please, if you can, hit subscribe. Double check that you're actually subscribed. Then you have another leader, foreign relations in the European Union, and from Belgium, Maxime Prévost, says Belgium expresses its full solidarity with Denmark and the people of Greenland, be it in Ukraine, DRC, or Greenland. Territorial integrity and sovereignty are fundamental principles of international law enshrined in the UN Charter that must be respected by all. So here, he's also comparing what Trump is threatening to do to Greenland and Denmark with what Putin did to Ukraine. He's basically comparing Donald Trump to Putin, which brings me to this important point that's not getting enough coverage. So over the weekend, there were additional meetings held between the Russian delegation, the Russian special envoys, Dmitriev, and all of these Russian oligarchs, Yuri Yushakov, Kirill Dmitriev. And so here there was an announcement by Dmitry Peskov, who's like the main PR guy for Putin, who says there's no breakthrough in Miami talks, the Kremlin says. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said that the talks between Russia and the United States in Miami should not be viewed as any breakthroughs. According to him, Russia's main priority now is to obtain details of U.S. talks with Europe because Russia wants to invade Europe after it takes over Ukraine. And all Russia's trying to do is figure out how it could take over Donbass in eastern Ukraine, which it can't conquer militarily. So Trump's people, while Trump's been in Palm Beach, Trump's been golfing, right, for the past 4 days. And so Trump's in Palm Beach, Florida, these talks between Trump's delegation and the Russians were taking place in Miami. So clearly what was going down as well is the Russians were putting in Donald Trump's ear and the ears of Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner and others, let us take Ukraine, you go after Greenland, and let Xi Jinping take over Asia. That's what this all is, the multipolar world. Russia gets Europe, China gets Asia, and you, the United States, get Greenland and Canada and Mexico and Central America and South America. That's what was going down, was the special envoys for Russia were there. Trump's like, I need a special envoy in Greenland. So then Trump appoints Jeff Landry, the governor of freaking Louisiana. Why the governor of Louisiana? And Jeff Landry goes on TV yesterday and he explains what he thinks his role is. And he's like, in the Louisiana Purchase, Louisiana chose us. They chose the United States of America. And that's why I'm the governor of Louisiana. Therefore, if you look at it, if you think about it, and you go back in time, he goes, Greenland actually belongs to the United States. And that's what Trump said at a press conference earlier in the week. At some point in time, the land probably belonged to the United States. Greenland has been part of the Kingdom of Denmark for like centuries. Like, what are you talking about? So let me just show you what Jeff Landry had to say. So Jeff Landry was on State Regime Media here, and here's what he said. Play this clip.
Obviously, you're now appointed as special envoy. With comments like that, President Trump has certainly made it very clear that he has a great interest in Greenland. What is going to happen next? Will you travel there? Will negotiations begin? Because I did see the Danish Prime Minister saying that he does not want to get on board with this.
Well, the one thing I can tell you, Griff, is everyone in Louisiana now wants to go to Greenland for the summer. It gets real hot in Louisiana, and everywhere I go in Louisiana now, the question I'm asked is, can you take me to Greenland with you, Governor? When do you go? Please let me know. I want to go. It really is. And you know what's amazing is over a year ago, no one was talking about Greenland, okay? The whole time, Russian subs would circle Greenland. The whole time, the Chinese would pluck rare earths out of the Western Hemisphere. Then all of a sudden, we have the election of President Donald Trump. He comes in and says, you know what? The Monroe Doctrine is a real thing. We need to protect America's interests in those countries and territories in the Western Hemisphere. And again, Europe's just ignoring Greenland at the time. I mean, they don't even have first-class status at the UAE. This is an opportunity for Greenland to be invited to an economic table with the United States, the strongest, most advanced economy in the world. And we care. We care about them. We're the fastest security route to give them the security and the protection. It's about an hour away from the United States, where it's 3 to 4 hours from the European continent. I think there's a great opportunity here.
It's called the holiday credit dip, and it hits millions of people every year, and most don't see it coming. The holidays roll in, you swipe your credit card a few extra times, your balance goes up, and your credit score drops. That's where Smart Credit comes in. Smart Credit helps you stop the dip before it happens. Their patent technology pinpoints exactly which bills to pay and when to maximize your credit score. In fact, the average Smart Credit user can see an increase of 34 points in just 30 days. Maximize your score now, and you could save big in the new year. So, while you're out spreading holiday cheer, set yourself up for the smartest financial year yet with Smart Credit. Don't wait. Before you take the next swipe, head to smartcredit.com/Meidas and start your 7-day trial for just $1. That's smartcredit.com/Meidas, smartcredit.com. Disclaimer, individual results may vary and are not guaranteed.
And here's another clip right here of Jeff Landry. Let me play it for you right here.
I guess my main question to you is, what argument will you make to the Danes, who seem to be totally opposed to letting the U.S. come into a territory that they've had autonomous control of going back hundreds of years? What was the case that you'll make to them?
Well, I think our discussion should be with the actual people in Greenland, the Greenlanders. What are they looking for? What opportunities have they not gotten? Why haven't they gotten the protection that they actually deserve? Look, the United States has always been a welcoming party. We don't go in there trying to conquer anybody, trying to, take over anybody's country. We say, listen, we represent liberty. We represent economic strength. We represent protection. Look, no one knows that better than Louisiana. My family has been in Louisiana for over 300 years. We've lived under more flags than anyone living in the continental United States over the history of America. We ended up settling under the United States of America's flag. And for that, Louisiana has been so much better. The country has been so much better. But again, that's a discussion for us to have with the Greenlanders.
Well,
and here is what the Foreign Minister Lars Rasmussen of Greenland said about Trump now appointing an envoy whose professed goal is to take over Greenland. Here, play this clip.
We thought that we now had a U.S. ambassador in Denmark with whom we would have a relationship throughout the kingdom. I think that we have already developed a good working relationship, and it is also my impression that the ambassador has that opinion. Out of nowhere, there's now a special U.S. presidential representative who, according to himself, is tasked with taking over Greenland.
And again, you have Donald Trump saying as much. Donald Trump says that he wants to take it over, that Greenland belongs to the United States. We need it for national security, Donald Trump says. Let's play this clip.
But he felt very strongly we need it for we need Greenland for national security. Not for minerals. We have so many sites for minerals and oil and everything. We have more oil than any other country in the world. We need Greenland for national security. And if you take a look at Greenland, you look up and down the coast, you have Russian and Chinese ships all over the place. We need it for national security. We have to have it. And he wanted to lead the charge. So we're making him, Marco, today, a special envoy to Greenland. Greenland's a big deal. Yeah.
Now, while all of that's taking place, you have the United States sanctioning European leaders while removing sanctions from Russia. So the Trump regime has been quietly removing sanctions from Russian companies, Belarusian companies, and rather than, remember we were talking about, is there going to be secondary sanctions against Russia, right? Donald Trump's like, well, if Russia doesn't agree to a peace, this was what, 4 months ago, this is like secondary sanctions against Russia. And remember, Lindsey Graham's like, yeah, we're going to call Russia a terrorist state and we're going to sanction them. So not only is the United States not doing secondary sanctions against Russia, Trump's been removing most of the sanctions against Russia. And now the United States is sanctioning European leaders. So announcement that just took place yesterday is the following. And this is how I think it's a good way to describe it. The U.S. has just sanctioned the leading German voice against hate speech, Annalena von Holdenberg, and the former French EU Commissioner, Thierry Breton. And so you have Secretary Rubio, Secretary of State, says, for far too long, ideologues in Europe have led organized efforts to coerce American platforms to punish American viewpoints they oppose. The Trump administration will no longer tolerate these egregious acts against extraterritorial censorship. Today, the State Department will take steps to bar leading figures of the global censorship industrial complex from entering the United States. We stand ready and willing to expand this list if others do not reverse course. I just want you to be clear what's happening, right? You have the United States meeting in Miami with the Russians. They're allowed in, right? You have Dmitriev and Ushakov and all the top Russians. They're allowed in. But the Europeans are now being banned and they're being sanctioned. Why? Because Europe has its Digital Services Act, which says that if social media platforms with like 45 million subscribers or more engage in consumer consumer attacks, misleading consumer behavior, allow hate speech to proliferate. That they're saying, that there needs to be some moderation taking place on social media. So now you have the Undersecretary of State. We've sanctioned Thierry Breton. We've sanctioned Anna-Lena von Hondenberg. They're going after Europe. And they're promoting Russia. Like the intent here should be pretty clear what this United States regime is doing. And then, as Mark Thiessen says, this is insane right here. You then had a few days ago, Tulsi Gabbard, who's the director of national intelligence, who's basically, in my opinion, compromised by Russia, saying that she's the DNI, she's the head of intelligence in the U.S., and she's saying that NATO and EU are trying to basically create World War III, and they're the reason why there's not peace in Ukraine. Just give Donbass to Russia. Ukraine wants a ceasefire. They've always been agreeable. Russia's saying that it needs to continue its special operation and take over its historical territorial lands, and that it needs to conquer all of eastern Ukraine, and then it's good. And then it's going to go and then attack all of Europe. So the United States, you see what's happening here? That you have the U.S. threatening war with Europe. You have Europe going back and saying, you do that, we'll go to war with you. No one's calling out what's taking place. But anyway, let me play you this clip of Tulsi Gabbard. Let's play it.
They foment fear and hysteria as a way to justify the continuing of the war and their efforts to undermine President Trump's efforts towards peace. And do so specifically in this case in order to try to pull the U.S. military into a direct conflict with Russia, which is ultimately what the EU and NATO want. We cannot allow this to happen. We have to see clearly what's happening before our very eyes and stand united in this cause of peace.
There you have it, folks. Let me know what you think. Hit subscribe. Let's get to 6 million, and we appreciate you.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to add the MeidasTouch podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts for new updates every single day.